What are you seeing in this impeachment trial that, if the president remains in office, will be part of the presidential campaign as you continue to pursue that presidential campaign?
Let's face it. What this impeachment trial is about is corruption. It's about a president who thinks he's more important than serving the national interest. He was willing to use your tax dollars. He was willing to use the national defense as just a bargaining chip to help him politically. And I think this is what's broken in Washington and exactly how we're going to beat Donald Trump. Look, we've got the most corrupt president in history right now in the White House. And the way I'm going to run this election is to draw the sharpest possible contrast against that. I have the biggest anti-corruption plan since Watergate. The bad news is we need the biggest anti-corruption plan since Watergate. But it's to beat back the influence of money and self-dealing in Washington. And here's the thing. This is the fight we should be having in 2020 because it's fundamentally about who government works for. Is it just going to work for a handful of rich people, people who can make big donations? Keep in mind, right at the center of this whole thing is a guy who gets to be ambassador. Why? Because of his qualifications? No. He gets to be ambassador because he made a $1 million contribution to the Donald Trump inaugural committee. That's the kind of corruption the American people both understand and are sick to their teeth of. And here's the thing. It's not just Democrats who are sick of it. Republicans get it, too, that Washington has worked over and over and over for those at the top and not for them, that Amazon and Eli Lilly and Halliburton report billions of dollars in profits and pay zero in taxes. Meanwhile, hardworking people in this country, they pay their taxes. Somebody has to keep this government running and keep the roads paved and the schools open and the defense up. And they see a government where these big companies have figured out, where the corporate executives have figured out, where the billionaires have figured out. Instead of following the rules, instead of paying your fair share, go to Washington and spread around a bunch of money. And then you get breaks and the government works for you and sticks everybody else with the bill. We draw that kind of contrast in 2020. That's not only how I beat Donald Trump. It's how we take back the Senate. It's how we take back state houses all around this country. It's how we win as Democrats up and down the ticket. We're the party that's not just for the rich guys who are pulling all the strings in Washington. We're the party to make this government work for everyone.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.